Have you done an intro yet, or what's the crack?
Oh, we're live. No, we've just been.
We're only live about 40 seconds. 40 seconds.
Yeah.
So if anyone's tuning in now, we're doing the retro rewatch. We're doing Republic of Ireland versus Holland, which is now live on TG Car, and it should be beginning in the next couple of minutes. So I'm joined by Will Dalton, Gary Spain, and Jer Brown. So we're going to kind of give little bits of our takes from this time. I wasn't born. Jer, I'm pretty sure you weren't born because you're younger than me. But Will, what age would you have been around this time?
I was 7. So this was my first big major tournament that I remember essentially everything from. As in, I watched every single game there was. Euro '88, I remember a bit, but this was the one where it just went viral, I suppose, as we would say today.
And Gary?
Well, I was there. I was 23, so I actually had to take the month off work to go to Italy, and so I obviously remember everything about it as well.
Well, talk us through the buzz. Obviously going over there, and what was the feeling? Because you look at our Ireland teams now, and a lot of fans are pessimistic. I mean, they all go over, I suppose, optimistic. When it comes to game days, they're not really as I suppose positive. We obviously had better players back then. But what was the general kind of buzz, if you can bring your mind back to that time?
Yeah, well, the buzz was pretty good. There was because we'd done so well in Euro '88 and we'd done so well in qualifying. I mean, we'd won our 4 home games in qualifying, which helped a lot as well. So there was a big buzz coming up to the tournament. There were tens of thousands of people traveling, and I mean, it was everything from day trips to the games, people going on package tours. We went our own way. We were actually camping. I was just telling the lads we were in a tent, at least for the start of the tournament. I kind of gave it up after Genoa, that decided we weren't camping anymore. But that was the original plan. And so, yeah, there was fans wherever you go. A lot of guys had actually rented camper vans. So that was the start of it. And guys picking up camper vans in Milan and Rome airport and driving. We met a lot of them in the ferries, met them in the campsites, etc. But I mean, there were a lot of Irish fans there. Even actually for this game, the Dutch game, there were a lot of fans couldn't get tickets. There were actually thousands of Irish fans locked out of this game. That it was quite a small stadium. The Dutch travelled in big numbers as well, and the tickets just weren't there.
Just like Gary, from a fan's point of view, because once this game was the back of the 0-0 draw against Egypt, and the game the TG Car skipped over, and probably better off. What was the feeling kind of going in? Were we quietly confident, or was it kind of a bit of a bad move because I suppose the Egypt game would have been viewed as the best chance to get 3 points in that group?
Oh, it was, yeah. Well, I think it was still 2 points in those days, but yeah, had we beaten the game against England was a good result. It was a terrible game, but it was a very good result. Everyone was happy with it. The feeling was if we beat Egypt, we were more or less guaranteed to go through as at least the best third, worst case. So that was a big downer because we didn't play well. It was disastrous result, poor performance. And I think the feeling a lot of fans had at that point was they were going home after the Dutch game. And I mean, I think the FAI actually had a plane in Palermo airport, and the team would have been home a few hours after the final whistle. And because if we lost, we were out. I mean, a draw would have been enough for both teams to get through, either second or third. A win, obviously, we could have potentially won the group. But because of the draw with Egypt, there was a big downer after that. And I think the Dutch were so good. They were European champions. They had Holland, Rijkaard, Van Basten,
Here's the lineup just before you go into that. You got Packy Bonner, Chris Morris, Steve Staunton, Mick McCarthy, Kevin Moran, Paul McGrath, Ray Houghton, back there. Ray Houghton, John Aldridge. What did you say? Kevin Sheedy,
Kevin Sheedy was there, and Niall Quinn started as well.
Yeah, Niall Quinn came in for Casperino from the previous game.
And look at their team, like Koeman, Rijkaard, Hullet, Van Basten, to name a few. Like, unbelievable.
Keith, who got the goal in '88 that knocked us out as well, you know, Wim Keith.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the names, Van Basten, Rijkaard, Frank Burns, Hullet, like they just won the European Cup of AC Milan, so they were flying if they come into that tournament. Van Basten was the two-time Ballon d'Or winner from '88 and '89. Like, it was a quality Dutch team, like just like ourselves did it, were very successful in qualifying, didn't lose a game in qualifying, topped the group ahead of Germany. I think, like, and we knew it was a repeat, obviously. The deja vu really in many respects, Gary, because it was last group game versus Dutch in the major tournament, just like Euro '88.
Yeah.
A lot of similarity. We had 8 players start that night in Parma that played that game in Euro '88, and I think the Dutch had 8 or 9 as well that featured at some stage in that game. So there was a lot of similarity and familiarity between the two teams.
And they had won Euro '88 as well, so they were the reigning European champions. And I mean, there aren't too many bad Dutch sides, but this was a particularly good one.
Yeah, Will, you know, the fact that you're 7 years of age watching this, and you know, at that point, generally speaking, when people get into football, like at that sort of age, they tend to know absolutely everything about every footballer on the planet. Were you in that phase at this point?
Completely. And when we go to half time, I'm actually going to show you something, a little memory from the archive book, which is what really got it all. Yeah, it was everybody in school. Like, the buzz was just incredible. Like, I'm sure you remember what 02 was like, as in when we got there. And the Euros, I don't think have quite been the same. The World Cups, it was just everything, you know, you'd wake up on the day beforehand, the days beforehand. Like, we think, you know, football is a bit saturated now with the coverage. But even back then, I remember it was just wall to wall, because the first time we'd ever qualified for a World Cup, and, you know, to get the result against England obviously was such a high. Then Egypt was such a bad game. And then overall, the tournament was known for being a pretty poor tournament, to be honest, because there was this defensive kind of stance that was taken by the majority of teams going into the tournament, and it continued on. Obviously, Ireland were a little bit, but even the Germans were pretty defensive. Argentina, I think, only scored, was it something like 5 goals in the entire tournament, which was a record low for a team to reach the final. So overall, it wasn't like a classic of, you know, the beautiful game, but it was just, it was non-stop, absolute non-stop.
No, I think Will, it gets a bad rep sometimes, because there were some absolutely, it was a terrible final, which I think works against this World Cup. But I think both semi-finals were absolutely epic. There were games like England v Cameroon, Spain v Yugoslavia was a cracking match. Even Argentina-Yugoslavia quarterfinal was 0-0, but it was gripping. But that was just before we played Italy, actually. Yeah. And in the group stages, you had Cameroon. You actually had Romania in the group stages, who were superb as well. Mm-hmm. And they sprung a few shocks, and
some standout goals as well. Baggio's, I think, one goal of the tournament against the Czechs, I think, where he dribbles past God knows how many players. And then there was some other players who just kind of, it was kind of the time of superstars. There were, like, obviously the Van Bastens, Ruud Gullit, even players like, I remember Scouravi, who scored, I think, a hat-trick in one game. And you get all those early memories of different things like that as a kid, and just kind of seeing these, international superstar footballers. And then this Dutch team, as we talk about, they were one of the favourites, as I remember, to actually win the competition, because, like, reigning European champions, and the quality, and as you just mentioned as well, the lads at AC Milan who'd won the European Cup, as it was back then. The spine of that team was Dutch almost, wasn't it? So, yeah.
Koeman would have
Koeman with Barcelona
at that point.
He was a Barca, but Rijkaard, Van Basten.
Hullet
yeah.
were all at Milan. Yeah.
Milan, yeah. Just you mentioned there like defensive football, what this tournament has been mainly known for. Do you think because 3 of the 4 teams that finished third in the group were guaranteed to go into knockout stages, so you knew that if we draw 3 games, that's probably going to get through? Do you think that was probably a major reason behind it being quite a major tournament? And it turned out to be the penultimate tournament of the 2014 World Cup, and like 98, which was the first 22-team World Cup, has been widely regarded as probably one of the most expensive and attacking tournaments.
It may have had an effect because I suppose Must Not Lose was particularly in vogue in the opening games. I mean, it wasn't necessarily 3 out of 4. It was 4 of the 6 third place teams. 4 of the 6 best third place teams got through. So it's the same as in the Euros now, for example, that it's 24 teams. So yeah, I prefer certainly a 32-team World Cup, but
well, you can check out the new Road to Glory with a 32-team World Cup, Gary.
So
now go on with what you're saying.
Yeah, so it probably in the group stages it did lead to some boring games, and our group probably wasn't the most attractive. I mean, the Egypt game was absolutely shocking. Now, one point about that was it was played in the heat on a Sunday afternoon, and this Dutch game was played late on Thursday night, and it was a lot cooler because, I mean, Sicily gets really hot in the summertime, so it probably helped us. I'm sure it helped the Dutch as well that this game was played later at night and much cooler in the evening.
But Gary, I think if you look at the Egypt team, they really, you're talking about heat. That was kind of, I wouldn't say normal for them, but they were definitely more accustomed to it. And they came into that World Cup with kind of no intention to play football. It really was very defensive from them on another level almost, I thought.
Well, I think that one of the points, though, I mean, Egypt, they hadn't qualified for a World Cup at that stage since the 1930s. And they didn't qualify again until the last one in Russia. And I mean, they were expected to be the whipping boys. I mean, I think they were expected to lose all 3 games. Mm-hmm. So the draw they got with the Dutch was a big shock on the opening game, but we were still expected to beat them easily. And they dug in. They just defended for their lives, and we just never got going, and it was a dreadful game. We probably should have changed tactics or something, but it never happened for us, and the team got really frustrated, and that was a big downer. I mean, it was really seen as being a chance blown, because with the draw with England, it was all set up for us to beat Egypt, and then we were guaranteed to be in the knockout stages.
I think it might have been a bit of overconfidence as well, because obviously with getting the result off England, we beat Egypt. We're over halfway there.
Yeah, well, I think we would have been almost, guaranteed, if not mathematically guaranteed, we would have been certain, actually, even if we'd lost to the Dutch, that at least one of the best thirds would have been secured with a win and a draw. That was kind of the expectation. That would have been enough. And certainly, I mean, it was considered far easier to beat Egypt than to draw with Egypt and then draw with the Dutch as well.
Was there a tense atmosphere amongst the stadium, Gary, when you were in there? Because anytime Ireland are playing against a big enough team, even Switzerland now, like when we played against them, every time they got the ball, I was nervous because they're just a quality side. They're obviously these Dutch players we've mentioned who they have there, but were the Irish fans confident in our team that we're well capable of getting a result? Because obviously we drew against England, but just from what was it, tense in the stadium basically?
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, it was a fantastic occasion, and I mean the stadium was more or less, there weren't too many neutrals there because the Dutch had a lot of fans, we had a lot of fans. Because of Euro 88, there was actually a great relationship with the Dutch fans as well. And we had been we were actually staying in a place called Sheffield, which is about 30-40 miles from Palermo. but there were loads of Dutch fans around the campsites there as well, and there was a fantastic atmosphere with the fans on the night itself. Because it was such a big occasion, it was very tense. We were nervous. It was kind of, the expectations had gone way down because of the Egypt game. The Dutch were definitely favourites. They were expected to win. There's no doubt about that. And I mean, I think everyone felt that Egypt had shot the bolt and that England were going to beat Egypt. So it was up to us we had to get a result then.
Would you have been keeping an eye on there's right cards goals, putting the Dutch 1-0 up? Just as a point of view. Would you have been aware of what was going on in the other game between England and Egypt? Were you able to keep up and save the score at all?
There was no.
Someone had a radio with earphones.
There was no mobile phones in those days, and so but they were flashing the score up on the big screen, I believe, is what I can remember. That they. So I can't actually. I know Mark Wright scored the only goal. England won 1-0, but I can't remember how early he scored or not. But I think we were kind of expecting.
Jeez, we're caught napping for that goal, weren't we?
Yeah, no, it was lovely interaction played in the Dutch zone, Cairns.
Our defence were sleeping. It looked like. Gary, what were you saying there?
So I think, we probably expected England to win, but we were being kept. I think was kept up on the big screen what the score was from Cagliari, but I think the feeling was if we get a draw.
They're having a goal disallowed.
So offside, was it?
Yeah, I think so. Trying to see your crowd there, Gary.
He's wearing one of them hats, with the spinny thing on the top of it.
I think it's a free out for putting on the offside or for a foot. There's another goal in by Staunton in fairness.
Yeah.
Great header.
Close enough. It was a good finish. Yeah.
Just even like.
Yeah.
I know, just looking at the first 10 minutes over here, even though it's kind of a scrap up, like we did actually seem to get in the Dutch half a little bit and try to certainly look as if we were actually going to go and try and win the game a small bit.
Gary, I think he's talking to you.
Yeah, no,
it's open to anyone.
We were well able to have a go in those days and actually get at teams and cause them problems. I mean, we may have been talking about, let's say, defensive World Cups, but we were well able to have a go at teams. I mean, we had a go at England in the first game. I know because we went to goal down early enough. I mean, Egypt, we were the ones trying to make the running, but just couldn't break them down.
Yeah.
And because we went to goal down so early in this game, again, we had to have a go at them.
How much would you say the loss of Ronnie Whelan would have been targeted? Because he wasn't fully fit going into that tournament when he coming on substitutes.
So there was actually Ronnie was he was a big loss. So Ronnie actually came onto the pitch before the game in the warm up, and there was a big celebration in the fans that we thought, let's say, but this is about 45 minutes now. I still actually to this day don't know whether he had a fitness test or not, but we certainly thought 45 minutes, an hour before kickoff, that Ronnie was going to play. But then when the teams were announced, he wasn't in them again. So he was carrying an injury going into the tournament. And so he never really... I know he came off the bench. I don't think he came off the bench in that game. But he wasn't the same player, unfortunately. And he was a loss. I mean, he was a really quality midfielder. Now, I know, look, we had a great side, but Ronnie certainly would have made a difference.
Here's a good one for you, boys. If you were to take one player of the current lineup and put him into the current team, this lineup that we're watching, into our current team, who would it be?
Paul McGrath.
Yeah, Paul McGrath. He's my favourite all-time Irish player. Has to be.
In central midfield.
And why?
You don't need to answer that. It's the best Irish player there's ever been.
Yeah,
Well,
that's my... Yeah. You could play him centre half. You could play him in front of the back four. He was just a quality player. And I mean, in 1990, not to mind in 94 as well, he was at the peak of his power and top player.
Just double checking, what position was McGrath playing in this game?
Midfielder.
Midfield, yeah. It's because like in fairness, remember our current team, like I wouldn't actually put in defender in because our defense is actually our strongest line at the moment. So it definitely would be looking to midfield or even up front.
Are you saying that he gets in ahead of Glenn Whelan? Like,
there's other midfielders there.
He would get in. Probably ahead of anything.
Come on.
Say that again, Will.
I said I think Glenn would happily give up his place if Paul McGrath was back in the Irish team. But back then as well, you got to remember he was. I think Paul aged quite a bit between 90 and 94 because his knees obviously just deteriorated so badly. He's in this side as a midfielder, and there he is there now on the ball, and you can see his deft touch in and out. Like as well, you imagine Paul McGrath playing in a better side. Imagine better players around him, because the Irish were a very good side, but not world class. Paul McGrath was a world class player. It would have been really interesting to see him in like a select 11 playing alongside, the likes of a Baggio or somebody at that time, or a Lothar Matthäus, or these sort of players, because he certainly just stood out. But
was he your idol on the team as a 7-year-old child?
Well, actually, my favorite player when I was watching this World Cup was actually Andy Townsend, who later went on to join Chelsea, and he's the reason I'm a Chelsea fan. So it was a bit mad. And then the following year, my club went over to Manchester, and we met Niall Quinn outside Main Road, and he looked after us incredibly. So him and Quinn were kind of the two ones that were kind of the standout. But then there were so many of them. Like you could obviously Mick, Kevin Moran from his Dublin days was always kind of a favourite and a real war horse in the team. Up front, John Aldridge was always great to watch. Cascarino as well had something about him. Houghton, obviously, for the goals he scored, those important goals. So there was a right mix. It was just an incredible time, obviously, with the aura around Jack that he created with the team and the buzz. And it was just the whole country. Like, the country literally stopped. Do you know what? It's almost, we're talking about the lockdown and all that sort of stuff. I think the quietest the country has been since those days, as in 1990 World Cup. There was not a single person on the road. It was...
Yeah, I can actually tell a story. I worked in an American company in Galway at the time, Digital. And when I came back home from the World Cup, an American colleague who was married to his wife and daughter in Galway. And he, at the time, I suppose, maybe I put it in context, there was a lot of concern about between the USA and the Soviet Union about possibly nuclear war and total nuclear winter and the world being destroyed. So Chuck actually, the day of the Romania game, got caught up in work and didn't realise the game was about 5 o'clock on a Monday. So he left about 10 minutes after the game had started and forgot about the game. So he goes out of work and kind of sees nobody, gets into his car, and he's driving the whole way across Galway. And after about 5 minutes, he realises there's literally nobody on the street. He didn't see a single person. And he gets really upset and panics and says, there's been a nuclear holocaust. And he drives home at high speed to get in and hopefully to get home and die with his wife and daughter, and rushes in the door, and the two of them are watching the match. And he said there wasn't a single person on the street in Galway. There wasn't a car, there wasn't a bus, there was absolutely nothing. At 5:30 on a Monday evening.
That's mad.
It was incredible. It was incredible.
Well, do you find it funny that, like, you mentioned Quinn, Cascarino, Mick, and you've kind of gone on to become friends with them since, obviously. Do you think that's a bit mad? Like, not in a bad, like, not in a weird way, but it's just mad how football works like that.
It's very strange to kind of, like obviously as a kid meeting Quinn, it was, you know, like meeting a god, and then to see that the god is actually human and real. I remember at outside Main Road, he spent an hour and a half with us after a match he played in. He got other players to come out to us. He signed as many things as we wanted. There was none, oh, I'm just signing one. It was shirts, it was programs, whatever. And then, yeah, when you go on to meet them in later years, it's kind of, they've all been in different circumstances. I might have come across them without interviewing them. They would have seen me around and stuff like that. It's kind of weird when you start kind of doing what I do, when you interview one player, two players, three players, then it becomes a bit, they're actually human. And people go, oh, what's he like? What's that? And I'm like, just, some of them are really sound, some of them are less sound, but they're all just human beings, and they become, and then kind of, you know, especially the Irish lads have always found, I'd say 99% of them are always just very down to earth, especially if they know you're Irish as well. They get the whole Ireland thing. I think even the lads who might not be born here, when they sign up to it. Matt Holland's a perfect example. Remember working with Matt, and obviously, you know, Matt's Irish as in, but was born in the UK, and there's straight away it was like, you know, you'd be chatting about this and we talk about like 2002 World Cup and little stories and different things like that. And it's just, I think when you do this sort of thing and you have the love for football and you come into working with these sort of players, managers, whatever, it's just, you share stories and you hear stories from them, and they love telling them and sharing them and different things like this. And it's pretty cool after that. It's a nice way to spend your time.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there when you said like 99% of them are so sound, especially even the younger lads coming through, because I know quite a lot of them now, and I've had them on the show and stuff like that. And even the players, even the senior team now, like how many of them have given up their time to do interviews there lately, like they are all sound. And as you say, once you get over that kind of, oh my God, they're footballers thing, and realise, as you say, they are just humans, and majority of them are sound fellas. I mean, you look at today, there was a young lad who got a jersey sent over from John Egan. One of the podcasts we did with John Egan, one of the kids asked a question, and John obviously answered his question, and then he was so happy that he just got the answer from the question, and John obviously seen the reaction from the young lad. He's only 6 or 7. I can't remember what age he is. But John got in touch with me then. He just said, so send me that lad Reese's address. And then today his jersey came, and the kid was just, you know, oh my God, he couldn't believe it. But it's just such a nice, as I say, human gesture from John to do that. And I think a lot of the Irish lads are very much like that. You know what I mean? And maybe the ones probably back in 1990 were a bit sounder because they probably didn't get as much stick off the fans as I suppose the team do now. I think a lot of them find it hard with the negativity when they come over. Like, they obviously love playing for Ireland, but I know from talking to a few of them, they just hate, like, as soon as they touch down, it's, oh no, we're going to get hammered type of thing. But I think if you get behind them and show, you know, that you really support the teams, they are all very much sound, in my opinion.
Well, I think a thing as well that you look at from probably 1992, Gary, you might have an opinion on this as well, that the tabloids, especially the tabloids in England, played a much bigger part in kind of players' lives. And when I say that, I mean off the pitch. I think there was a little bit of, obviously the Dunphy scenario in 1990 was kind of the first maybe taste we had of, you know, kind of a bit of aggro between the press and the team. And then when you go into domestic stuff as we move in through the 90s, and that's why players just didn't want to talk to the press, because they just thought, you know, they're looking for a story. They're looking to try and sell a newspaper. They're looking to try and say something about me or get something from me and twist it. And that's, a lot of them had their fingers burnt, and that kind of led all the way through. And even when I started in the UK in 2008, players are still very wary. It was about, right, who do you write for? And a lot of the journals, the paper journals, had to build up personal relationships with players. But I think with TV now and with social media and stuff, players now are beginning to get it. America has been that way for probably about 15 years or so, maybe a bit longer, that players see how powerful TV and social media can be for them as a brand almost. Some players have no interest in being a brand. Well, a lot of players now increasingly do, because they see, well, you're only a footballer until you're 35-ish, and then you're kind of gone and you have to find something else to do. So now they realize, well, TV and punditry and all that, it's a very nice way to earn a few quid. Finish the shot there. Was that Sheedy?
Sheedy, just over the bar.
So
that's right.
I think, Gary, do you think that as well? Do you think that was the kind of the coming top was the red tops and all that sort of stuff?
No, I'd agree with you more on at the Premier League as it went on. But even back then, I mean, Bobby Robson, the England manager, was under incredible pressure in the tabloids. He was getting terrible abuse. A lot of the players were getting a bit of stick as well. And then you had the huge issue of hooliganism at the time. I mean, the England fans, FIFA actually effectively changed the seeding for the World Cup. They came up with an incredibly convoluted seeding to actually get England ahead of Belgium, who had been in the last 2 World Cup semi-finals, and all sorts of decimal points and everything, because they wanted to put England out on the island in Sardinia and keep the fans away from mainland Italy. So there was a lot of negativity in the British press coming up to the World Cup about Bobby Robson, about some of the players, about the fans. And we even met English fans. I know we went to, let's say it was after this, we went to Spain, Yugoslavia in Verona. And England were playing Belgium the same day, and only about an hour or so away down in Bologna, maybe a bit more. And we met some English fans going into the game and said, well, why aren't you down in Bologna? Oh, no, we're here for the World Cup and totally avoiding any England games, because they just didn't want the hassle and whatever about being branded hooligans. And I mean, the Irish, we were, as Irish fans, we were treated totally differently by the Italians. And so there was, without going too much off the point, the English team, and I can imagine the players, the management, going into the World Cup had a lot of issues with the tabloids. And of course, then the way they went, of course, they came home heroes, because you're either a total villain or a total hero as the tabloids go.
Yeah, I think with that, it's still the same now, Will. I think, yourself and being around the kind of Ireland camp, if they don't know, they don't like going into they hate going into the press conferences before games. I know that for a fact. But if you build up personal relationships with 1 or 2 players, then generally speaking, they'll go off and say, no, he's sound, he's only got your best interests. He's not there to make you look like a fool. And once they know that, I swear to God, the difference is unbelievable. I know even just from the quarantine, how much of a difference it's been. It's been unbelievable. And again, I can see it from their point of view. I mean, every day I'm sure they're asked for stuff off people all the time. Can I have this? Can I have a signed top here? Can I have this? Or can I have a shout out? Or whatever it is. And I think some of them do see it, as you say, as they're a lot of them have private Instagrams and they have public Instagrams, and obviously the public one is the one that they use for, as you say, their brand, and so you can totally see it from both sides. But I think
it is because people want to make money out of them. I give you a perfect little example. There's a certain club, I'm not going to say what club it is, but whenever there are matches, right behind the dugout, you'll have about 4 or 5 kids to teenagers standing behind the dugout wanting autographs. And they have these boards with stickers or cards or something like this. But that's not for a personal collection. That goes straight onto Amazon or straight onto eBay. And they're making money off it. And I think that's what the players kind of get a bit miffed about. They don't mind doing stuff with the real fans and people who, have genuine interest and all that sort of stuff. But there's so many kind of different ways people are now just trying to make money off players. You'll see that it's hanging around the training grounds and waiting for them to come out and hoping they'll stop. And they'll literally be handing them a pile of clothes and going, sign all these. And it's like, you're just sticking this on eBay. Do you know what I mean? It's like lads do this as a business now, which is, it's really sad, but it is what it is.
You know, I do think what the good thing about the Irish lads is there's no real ego with them. Like they're all very much sound. I mean, you only have to look at Seamus Coleman, for example. I mean, the amount of stuff he does, charity work and everything else, and he still, if you meet him, he'll sign absolutely anything you want. And I mean, like I've been over to the Everton training ground, and he'll start from the very, very first person to the very last person. Everyone gets a picture. Everyone gets probably 2 minutes with him, and this is after a game, and that's you know I've been lucky enough that most games I go over to, generally speaking, Everton win. So he's always probably been in good form. But even before the game, he takes all the time to the fans that are there before the game and after, and he'll sign absolutely everything, selfies, you name it, you'll get it from him. And I think that him setting those sort of standards as well. I'm sure it's the same for Ireland when the Irish team are meeting up and they meet the fans. I'm sure he's the exact same. Um, and that's what I love about the Irish team is that no one's kind of too big or whatever to sign things. Whereas you've heard stories probably back then or even back in 2002, like, Roy Keane was infamous for never, he just tell people where to go and he would have no filter in doing it. Whereas I think now, majority of lads, like, I remember meeting Matt Doherty in the Players' Lounge. He just won, I think, Player of the Month in the Premier League. And he was like, he didn't. I could tell by him he was just a bit round off, getting bothered by everyone. But he still stopped and got in photos and pictures with everyone anyway. So I think that's one thing I love about our team is that they always stop and have the time for people. I think we're any use at that Crisk Awards and Darren Randolph and Seamus Coleman were brought in. Darren won the award for the Fans Player of the Year because he was probably the only thing good about that year last year. But Martin O'Neill's last year, and then obviously the first few games under Mick. But he won awards and he stopped. They got photos with absolutely everybody, and there was a good amount of people there. They all got professional pictures with the lads, autographs, whatever you want, jerseys signed. Absolutely brilliant. Wes Houlihan was there as well. He signed everything. So had time, was mixing in with the fans, was having a couple of Guinness with the fans and stuff like that. That's what I love about it. I seen actually Ian Hart speaking on. I didn't watch it, but I read up on it. He was speaking on Alan Cawley's Instagram Live, and he went on to say, I think it was, what game was it? It was a game in the World Cup. I think it might have been. Was it the game? I think it was after the Germany game. So it was after Robbie Keane's goal against Germany in the 2002 World Cup. So apparently all the players and fans were all back in the hotel. You might be able to tell this better than me, Gar, because you may have been there. I don't know. If you were, you haven't told me yet. Anyway, but
I wasn't actually. We were actually going back to Tokyo after that game. So we didn't...
okay,
well, get to see them, so you can tell away, Paul. Sorry. Yeah. So
basically, like after the game, Mick had said to the lads that they could have a few beers or whatever. So they were mixing in with the players and the fans. The players were mixing in with the fans, and it just sounded class. He was like, it was unbelievable. It was a great time, and it was like you wouldn't be able to really get away with this type of stuff now. So that's the only real shame is because of social media and camera phones and everything like that. Like everyone's looking to make someone look like an arsehole, and that's the most probably annoying thing. I'd hate to be a footballer in that sense. Like I'd hate to be a public figure in that sense. I'd hate to be anyone in the spotlight that you can't actually just go out and just enjoy yourself, have a bit of fun, not worry about your picture being taken and you looking stupid or whatever. And I think that's one thing with the players. They're very selective of who they'll go out with now as well. I've had points with the players before, and like not together, but like with some of them on their own and with their mates and stuff like that. And they're just, like, as Will said earlier, they're just humans and they just want to be able to have fun without hundreds of people hounding them all the time. And I get that footballers and people look up to them, and I think they know that when they sign up to be a footballer. But I think some days, or they can be losing a game or that type of thing. And I think that's what gets under the skin is that some people just have no filter, don't realise, and they're becoming straight over the camera and in their face going selfie, selfie, selfie without even asking. And for me, that would piss me off too. So people have to, put the shoe on the other foot and go, well, if someone's coming over to me hounding me and put the camera in my face, would I be happy with it? Probably not. If you ask someone for a photo, 9 times out of 10 they're gonna say yeah, and unless they're in a rush to go somewhere.
Or Roy Keane.
Or well, in saying that, years later, Roy Keane, when he was the assistant manager, we met him out in Malahide and he got a picture. Now I kind of had to pull him in for a photo, but I think he's notorious for telling people not to touch him. But I grabbed him kind of around the neck for a picture.
There's some good stories of people asking Roy Keane for photos. Like asking why do you want to get a photo of me? Also, then some of my mates can see. Not just tell them that you met me. Like,
I can't really hear you, Jay. Say that again.
There's just some good stories like of people asking Roy Keane for photos and people asking can I get a photo shot. And Roy be like, why? So some of my mates can see it. It's like, you not just tell them that you met me.
Yeah, he has some funny comebacks in that sense and one-liners.
Yeah. You can even see it when he's on the football show on Sky Sports now in the mornings, like Dave Jones.
I think he plays up to that. Yeah, because if you ever watch him, and if you ever watch him closely, he always says something, and then he smirks, and you can kind of tell he's just saying this for a soundbite. You can tell. He just kind of smirks. It's quite funny because he doesn't really smile that much on telly, And then when he does smirk, you can tell. Even the off the ball thing he did with Neville, and he would say, like, he turned to him. Well, he said something about McAteer. He goes, "Oh, some people are living off a goal they scored 20 years ago against Holland." And then he did a little smirk. You can tell he's just playing up for views and stuff like that. And I'm sure he's well paid for those types of things. People will listen to anything Roy Keane says. That's half down to the player he was, but it's also half down to his kind of character and just the way he is. But like, there's not too many players that will come out and kind of confront him. I know Walters did, but you never hear like someone like Pogba or like that actually coming out and have a go where they'll have a go at Souness or something else. Souness wasn't a man to be messed with back then either, to be fair.
No, definitely not in the pitch anyway. Yeah.
No way.
Just another thing as well about this Ireland team, I'm sure it's the same as well, Paul, from a lot of today's players, but like you really do get the sense and vibe from this Ireland team and Jack here and Jen, they really are like get on really well with each other, really close and good friends. Like they had their reunion, 30-year reunion in the K Club in 2018, and one of my mates, his father was captain of the K Club that year, so he happened to go to it. And you could tell by them they're all really sound, all really bonding, getting on with each other. And like even we seen it that evening, we were up in Dundalk, Steve Staunton, Ray Houghton, Niall Quinn, like the way they talk and interact with each other is like as if they always chat to each other every day. Like it's just that kind of strong bond and good connection. I suppose as well, like they had a lot of glory days together, like so it's only a lot of fondness, I suppose, when they do kind of reunite and be back up together.
It's actually one of the big things Jack did with the squad, though. Even when he came in first, even before any glory, he had, as you say, he gelled the whole squad together, and they did get on so well together. And you could see even the first competitive away game was a 2-2 draw in Brussels, and you won't remember at the time, but basically before that we lost virtually any away game against decent opposition. And out in Brussels, we came back from a goal down twice. It was a last-minute penalty to get the draw, and it was a real bond in the squad. And I think it all took off after that. So even before we qualified for Euro '88, you could tell, great camaraderie and everything among the squad, which certainly helped. And you can look at some of the other squads, like the Dutch squad were often fighting with each other. There were issues in the English squad, but I mean, the Irish squad was always united.
Well, you spoke there about the K Club. I did an interview with Kevin Sheedy out there at that time, Jer, and he was just going on about how they were out there playing golf and how, Chris Hughton was there and Paul McGrath was there and Mick McCarthy was there, and you're just listing off endless names. And I was like, oh yeah, can I go out and meet them there type of thing? I didn't say that, but I was like, oh, that'd be amazing. And he was just saying the crack they had was unbelievable. They were in the Mansion House as well, a whole load of them. Jack was there as well, Jack Charlton.
What you should mention is happy birthday, Jack.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Well, we put up a post of Gary and Jack earlier on. I put it up on Instagram after I seen it on your profile, Gary.
A youthful Gary.
How old were you there? 23.
Yeah, I was 23, maybe 24. I think it was at the England game in 1990 in Dublin. I think it was about November 1990. So I would have been just 24 then.
Hang on. So it was the England game. What was that? Was that after this World Cup?
Yeah, so after the World Cup.
Sorry,
so it was the qualifiers for Euro 92. I think that's when it was. The Euros, yeah. And
all right, because I was like, how did you become 24? Anyway, I worked it out.
Okay. I was born in 1966, September 66, so I'm 53 now. So
here we go.
You can keep me honest if I'm getting the maths wrong. Yeah.
Well, lads, should we talk about the game a bit?
Yeah. So actually, one thing I've been watching the game. I mean, we've had quite a lot of the play. I mean, we haven't really been pressure out in defence. Another shot from Steve Staunton there just over the bar. I don't know if we've created too many clear-cut chances, but I'd say the possession stats are very much in our favour at this stage in the game, and we're certainly taking it to the Dutch. They've probably been content enough to soak up pressure, but we're not being, that wasn't that far away, we're not being overawed by any means by what was a really quality side.
I'm watching this here, and it just reminded me of the Road to Glory, just with the classic players, and it's mad. It's just so like the gameplay.
Yeah, you can't really say that Paki Bonner actually had an awful lot to do in that first half, Gary, probably, except for picking the ball out of his net.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can't remember any saves. Yeah,
that was about it. Shot from Koeman, which he parried. I think there was another header, which was a comfortable enough save, but it was kind of.
They're all straight at him.
You'd go ahead and you would almost sit back and, allow pressure to be put on you, which, as you said, you kind of go, this is Ireland against the European champions, and we're definitely not out of our depth by any means.
I think you can see their class though. Like you see every time Hulla gets on the ball, he's skinning our players. Like,
oh yeah, a couple of their players, and also some of the, especially in their half, their final third, the speed, they were able to sometimes. There was an instance there right out and getting the ball, player got in, just nipped it from. Those sort of things were kind of the difference. And like you look at Paki, when we take most of the goal kicks, okay, we've gone short there now, but when it's in his hands, watch, here we go.
Yeah.
Straight away.
What's the story with the kick?
That was just, what you mean, the tactic, or?
Just the way he does it. That's typical Niall Quinn there, isn't it? Winning free kicks further up the pitch there. He used to be always doing that.
And that was it. Players knew exactly what they had to do. One route, bang.
And you got your man guarded as well.
There were a lot of long balls to Niall Quinn, but he was very, very good at winning the ball, holding it up, and just defenders had to foul him. Then they couldn't get the ball off him.
A youthful looking Niall Quinn. Gary, you didn't happen to go to the Dutch-Germany game in the second round, did you?
No, actually, I can't believe how we debated this one. I was actually at Brazil-Argentina earlier in the day. So
it wasn't a great game, was it? I don't think, because it was 1-0.
Well, it was Brazil v Argentina though, and it was. I mean, I remember it for that pass from Maradona and the Caniggia goal, but Brazil dominated the game actually. But we actually had a long discussion on the way up because we wouldn't have had tickets for either game, and I mean, now for me to be a no-brainer, I'd always pick Brazil-Argentina, but we actually had a long discussion in the car on the way up and eventually decided on Brazil-Argentina rather than the Germans and the Dutch.
It ends up being a very feisty game, that Germany-Dutch game in Milan.
Yeah, we saw some of it on the TV actually later on, because the Brazil-Argentina game was a bit earlier. It was on in the afternoon.
It was the famous
that was...
Rudy Voller, Frank Rijkaard incident, I think, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember seeing as a kid and going, what's he done that for? Why has he done that? Paul, if you know what, look it up. You'll like it.
They, I don't recall the moment, but the two of them that you mentioned there, Voller and Rijkaard, they went on to be decent managers, didn't they? I think Voller was the manager of Leverkusen, that good Leverkusen team. And Rijkaard obviously was with Barcelona and brought the likes of Ronaldinho through. And
he started it before Pep. You know, he was kind of the first. You had Koeman come in the 90s, or not Koeman, you had Van Gaal come in, who kind of had this kind of Dutch revolution in Barca, which didn't really work. And then I think it was Rijkaard next, I think. And then, you know, he was...
Rijkaard was over them, in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Celtic got them the UEFA Cup, wasn't he over them then?
I think so,
yeah.
Yeah.
He kind of, after that, I think he managed and stuff, but he never really kind of reached the heights that I did with Barcelona.
Who's that, Will? Sorry?
Frank Rijkaard, management-wise.
Oh, yeah, but did he not win he won the Champions League, didn't he, against Arsenal? I think he was managing then.
Yeah.
I think he was, yeah.
And Eto'o was there, and Eto'o scored the winner, didn't he? And Larson was with them.
No,
Dino.
Belletti got the winner?
Belletti. But Eto'o scored, I think, the other goal before that.
Sorry, yeah.
I think he set up the goal as well for Belletti, I think. But apparently Larson came on in that game. Is it half-time now?
Just on half-time, yeah.
Just on half-time.
I'm going to run and get you some just so you can have a look through.
No, I was just saying there, Henry actually came out and said after that game that Henrik Larsson came on and just changed that game for Barcelona. And obviously, I think Sol Campbell got sent off in that game. And
in the first half, yeah.
Was it him or Lehmann that got sent off? Sorry, no, because Campbell scored. Lehmann got sent off. Sorry.
Yes, and was it Pires and then got taken off as well?
Maybe, I'm not sure who got taken off.
Yeah.
But
I remember
just
Henry missed a great chance for Arsenal to look in that game in the second half.
Good enough for him.
Mm-hmm. So half time this stage, so it's 1-0 to Dutch. It would have been 0-0 another game between England and each of the time. So at that particular moment in time, Gary, as we were fearing before the game, we were looking like we were heading home.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we were more or less out, unless we scored a goal.
You just keep talking there. I'll be back in a sec.
Even irrespective of the England-Egypt game, even if England had won 2 or 3-0, third place on 2 points after a defeat against the Dutch would not have been enough to qualify. So, I think we felt we were still in with a chance, but we weren't probably feeling too good about it or whatever. In fact, I remember my dad was there at the World Cup as well. Now he was on a package trip, we were in campsites, and he was staying in nice hotels. And I'm pretty sure we saying goodbye to him and safe journey home, because he was going to be on I think the package trip. They were going to be flying back early the following morning or something, and everyone was going home unless we got through, which of course had to change. A lot of people had to change plans at that stage.
Do you plan to stay on anyway for the remainder of the tournament?
Oh yeah, I mean, I actually went for the whole month. So I was planning this from a year out, and it was my first World Cup, and so the plan was I'm probably even going to go whether we qualified or not, and I would have got a lot more games had we not been out in the islands. But the plan was to go for more or less the whole thing, and so we actually stayed right to the final and went home the day after the final.
You're saying there at half time you're starting to begin your goodbyes to for the fans, family, relatives, but like from what we kind of seen further, okay, we can't say we tried particularly well, had too many chances, but like we had a good foothold in the game, and we possession wise, as we said earlier, probably about 50-50, and we did have a couple of decent long range fires. So I felt that there was maybe one chance.
Oh yeah, I mean, we still felt there was a chance, but probably weren't expecting to score probably at that stage, because the Dutch did look I remember thinking at the time they did look very comfortable and it would be tough to break them down. We'd need something special to get the goal.
Was there any particular player you would have been calling on Jack back then to bring on Ronnie Whelan, Tony Cascarino?
Not. I think the problem with Ronnie was he was injured. I mean, we weren't really expecting, or we didn't know how fit he was. I suppose. I mean, Tony Cascarino for Niall Quinn would be much more of the same, really. So Jack had started with Cascarino in the tournament, and then went for Niall Quinn in this game. So yeah, I was a player I think we actually missed from Euro '88 was actually Tony Galvin, who was an out-and-out winger. So probably he's one player I would have liked to have seen. Unfortunately, he just wasn't around anymore by 1990.
Yeah, he played in that game in Euro '88. So the second half was just kicked off there. If anyone is watching us here, Ireland 1-0 down in the first half. Brilliantly taken goal by Frank Rijkaard. A really well taken goal.
Ruud Hullet, wasn't it?
Ruud Hullet, sorry. So I was going to say,
Hullet, yeah.
Frank Rijkaard was the centre half. I think it was a very good goal for him and with him. But he was one of the trio that were AC Milan time. And like Italian football back then, I know Italy obviously been a host country, but it was on a crest of a wave because AC Milan were the European Cup champions and Juventus were the UEFA Cup champions.
Yeah, I mean, Milan at that stage were undoubtedly the top team in Europe because they had won the European Cup, now the Champions League, in both '89 and '90, and they were unquestionably considered to be because Serie A was where it was at the time. I mean, now you might say La Liga is the top league, but at the time it was definitely Serie A, and the top players naturally went to Italy.
Gary, there's a couple of comments.
There was a lot of players that went afterwards. I just wanted to show you, so dug this out of the archive, so just to give you a flavour of in the build-up. So obviously, as you were saying, like, Paul, I would have been 7. And things coming out, like, from music. I remember the Irish team had their first record released and all this sort of stuff. But this was the thing that was basically on sale. You can see that there. Just bring it to the camera.
Right.
Move a tiny bit up, I can see Houghton and Hullet there.
We even made the front cover, right? So that was the famous shot from Euro '88 with Chris Houghton and Ruud Hullet. So basically, it went. You got a magazine every week, and in it there was like a section. There's a few sections. So you get one section of each part every week. So famous players, great goals. Countdown to the World Cup. You can see, I'll show you in a sec here. That's the page on Ireland there with the boys.
Class.
And you had and even again, before we had YouTube and stuff. So we have, let's see what this is here. Famous one now. Bobby Charlton. So famous goals. It would give you the goal over the moon. And then on the back page, it would give you this is so bad, a diagram of how the goal was scored. So that was the YouTube back in 1990 of seeing the goal. And of course, at the end, no thing like this will be complete without, let me just find this. You're here somewhere. There we go. The sticker collection. So there were stickers all the way of all the Irish team. This was before the squad was announced, so the likes of John Anderson was in it. Who else was there?
Probably Gary Waddock was this one.
No, he wasn't actually. I thought he was going to be.
Okay.
Or Chris Houghton.
Good ball, Staunton.
Good chance.
Liam Brady even as well. So yeah, that was every Irish youngster, or a lot of Irish youngsters had that. Along with things like in Esso, I remember the Esso garages were doing coins. We used to collect these coins. I had the players engraved on them and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it was really deadly.
Just one thing I wanted to say. Do you notice how high, Staunton is very high there for a fullback, I suppose, at that time. Was he known kind of as an attacking fullback back then, Gary? Or I know he was a left winger for a while, obviously.
Yeah, well,
accommodate.
he was known. I mean, he played on the left side of midfield as well, so he was known as having as overlapping quite a bit, and he had a very sweet left foot, very good delivery. So, and Jack moved him up then. I suppose Kevin Sheedy wasn't available, or when Kevin Sheedy retired, he played the left side of midfield as well. Maybe not as a winger so much, but certainly as somebody who would tuck in on the left side of midfield and give quality delivery from set pieces.
And Gary, that's the question I'd have for you, just because something that's kind of gone past me. Chris Hughton, was he retired by then, or?
No, Chris was in. Chris actually lost his place to Steve Staunton. So Chris, I'm pretty certain Chris was in the squad. So I'd have to look it up to be sure, but I'm pretty certain Chris was there, and he was basically Stan had taken Chris's place because he'd come through, let's say, after Euro '88, and he was even for the opening match. It was probably in doubt as to who was going to play left back, that whether it was going to be Chris Hughton or Steve Staunton.
Who would have fed there most in the qualifying campaign?
I remember Steve Staunton coming in the qualifying campaign, and my memory would be that Chris would have started, but I'd have to look that up to be sure. Now I can't remember for certain.
Because Stan was even on the radar before your age. He was involved in some of the training camps he was at tournament.
He was, yeah. I remember actually because I was in college in Cork and I went to an under-21 game against Belgium in 1987. It was actually the night before we played Belgium in Dublin in Turner's Cross, and Stan was the star of the show in that game, and that was the first time he came on my radar. I don't think he was capped until after Euro '88. I think was it Tunisia? Maybe he got his first cap. I don't think he went to Euro '88 either. Because,
he didn't know that name.
Yeah, but he would have been kind of coming through at that stage. So, but by the end of the World Cup, he was our left back, and he was he's the only Irishman to play in 3 World Cups, a record I don't think he's going to lose anytime soon, unfortunately. But a great servant to us,
Was Frank Stapleton still in the squad by then, or had he retired?
Yeah, so Frank was in the squad. He didn't play. He was probably again coming to the end of his days. I mean, Frank was in the team for Euro '88, but by Italia '90, he got his 20th goal in the warm-up game against Malta. So he did make the 22, but he wasn't close to the team at that stage.
Yeah, Wales after getting knocked out there. I don't know what happened. But I'll get him back in a sec. I'll run upstairs and add him back in. I'll just wait for him to give me a text. But just a couple of comments. Where we're at. Oh, he's back now. So I just got to run upstairs. Someone said Lenny Plays said, if Gary the Legend Spain shouts me out, I'll drop a donation. I don't know what the donation's for, but he said he'll drop a donation if you shout him out, Gary. So his name's Lenny. So if you want, I don't know.
Big shout out to Lenny. The best. Thanks, Lenny.
There you go. And then Barry B says, Packy Bonner refused me a signature. Haha. And Andrew Kirk, what would you be at watching the whole game? Not really sure what he means by that. Colin Healy says, Gary's the best. Love listening to him. And then Dennis Noyan says, can we get gameplay? And it says on the screen there, it's live on TG Car. And then Cian McGrath asks Jer to take his top off.
I sent to him privately earlier, so he got his wishes then.
No, so I gotta just run up and I will back in, okay?
No worries. Just obviously, Gary, I suppose Italia '90, like your '88 was obviously brilliant, but Italia '90 was probably the one that really captured the imagination and kind of got everyone into football. I think it's a bit of a shame, kind of, that for some reason, the fact that everyone seems to love football, but the League of Ireland never really seemed to kind of bounce off and kind of benefit from this brilliant campaign.
Yeah, it's actually one thing that because if you actually remember back, I know you wouldn't, Ger, but the 1990 FAI Cup final was actually St. Francis against Bray and was played in Lansdowne Road. And there was over 30,000 at it, which was a phenomenal crowd for a cup final at the time. And part of it was the buzz and the build-up to Italia 90. And it was also the novelty pairing. But yeah, the League of Ireland never took off. And I mean, I suppose a lot of the fans were only interested in the national team or in English football. And probably actually in truth, there were a lot of GAA and rugby fans actually went to Italia 90 as well, who, I mean, football wouldn't be their sport of choice, let's say. I remember certainly the Italy game when we were there for about 3 weeks at this stage and had been hand washing jerseys and a bit ragged and everything. And guys came in on the day trip all wearing the latest Ireland rugby jersey behind us. We're kind of thinking, what are they doing here, you know? But so I suppose the national team at the time was something for the whole country. And unfortunately, it never translated into support for the League of Ireland. And I would have to just give anecdotal evidence, but I don't remember certainly Limerick skates changing much between 1987 and the early 90s. You know, it would have been, I don't, apart from that cup final, which was maybe an outlier, that it didn't rub off on the League of Ireland because the players were playing in England, or it was just seen as being totally different.
But Gary, there's also TV as well.
That was the first game I ever went to. Bray Wanderers against St. Francis at Lansdowne Road. Okay. And that's the closest thing I've ever been to that was like an international match that wasn't an international match. Really warm day, I think, if I remember. I don't know whether you were at it.
Right, I was there. Yeah, it was a lovely warm day, and it was. I think the kickoff was delayed, if I remember right. I couldn't believe the crowd. I was just in awe. I said, "Where are they all coming from?" You know, and it was. Yeah. It was amazing. It was actually fantastic, you know.
It was. It was like the FAI Cup final just gone wasn't quite the same level, but maybe going back in the right direction, shall we say?
Well, actually, the one thing I will say is it's the FAI, since the Aviva has opened, have done a fantastic job on the cup final. I mean, they've made the tickets very cheap, and I know the first one there was Shamrock Rovers and Sligo Rovers, and I think it was 36,000 there. And the cup final has become a day out because I mean, I've been going, my first cup final was Dundalk Limerick 77, and I went to a few as neutrals. Even my dad would drive up from Limerick to some of them, but you kind of only got the fans of the two teams. Now, it was a huge deal when your team was in the final, but it never became kind of a day out for anybody else or a cup final. And certainly, I mean, yeah, I really enjoyed the cup final last November. And I go now every year as a neutral, and I really enjoy them. So now maybe a crowd of 30,000 isn't so strange, but certainly back in 1990, I'd say it was double, if not treble, what you would have been seeing at FAI Cup finals of the time.
And especially as well, not two glamour teams. St. Francis have never got anywhere close since, in my memory. No. And Bray
won. They won the cup in 99 again. The Bray came back and they beat Finn Harps in 99 after, I think, in a second replay. But yeah, I mean, it was a really strange outlying pairing. I don't think anybody would have tipped either team to get near the final at the start of the season. And I think what happened as well was, I mean, the Liberties just went en masse to Lansdowne Road. I think there was seen photos afterwards of just a throng of people just walking from the Liberties out to Lansdowne Road.
Just what Andrew Cudden from is watching from San Francisco, and he just says, great content listening from out here in San Francisco. So shout out Andrew Cudden. That's always I always love to hear people listening, especially Irish people abroad listening and tuning in from other places who maybe can't get to watch the game but get to hear us talking. And obviously, Gary, you know, being over at the tournament and stuff like that, I think that's cool for people to kind of get an insight to what it was like, and, you know, mixing with the Dutch fans, the English fans, whoever, like you said, you were. So I think that's cool, and people have been adding their 2 cents. I haven't checked the Facebook comments, but that's just YouTube for now.
Right.
Start of the second half. Sorry, Gary, you want to say?
No, I was just maybe going to. Sorry, go on, Jer. Sorry.
No, you finish off.
No, you go ahead. You're okay.
I was just saying, start of the second half.
One of you lads, come on.
You have to say so far the start of the second half that we've been under the push a lot. Certainly, the Dutch seem to turn the screw in the first 10 or 15 minutes of the second half.
Okay.
Well, you can see they were thinking about making a sub there, David O'Leary. In fact, no.
Why is Chris Hughton playing for Holland?
Not quite Chris Hughton. I don't even know who that was.
Fraser,
I don't remember him now. Yeah.
No, neither do I.
What do you mean? He was world-class Ballon d'Or winner.
I remember Rob Witzke, actually, that came off. He was a nice player, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of the Dutch team back then would have been playing still in Holland at that time.
Some of them, a few of them were at. It's really funny. One of the things you wouldn't, or you might not have come across, the goalkeeper Hans van Breukelen actually played a couple of seasons at Nottingham Forest under Brian Clough.
Right. I was actually looking through their squad there as well. And at that time, they had a player, I can't remember his name, but he was playing at Aberdeen at the time.
Gilhouse.
It could be, yeah.
You always used to get a couple of weird, random like transfers or players in clubs like Aberdeen. How a Dutch international ended up at Aberdeen. I'm sure there's a story behind that.
Scottish football would have been a lot stronger back then, I'd even say, than now.
Yeah, well, they would have been even on the European stage. You had the likes of Aberdeen of the UEFA Cup. Was it the Cup Winners' Cup? Can I remember the
Cup Winners' Cup? They won the Cup Winners' Cup in '83. Yeah.
So
competitive. Lenny says, "Sorry, go on."
Just saying, even in some ways, the attraction going to Scotland for foreign players in England might be there because English teams were banned from Europe at the time. So, play for someone like an Aberdeen or Celtic and Rangers who were playing in Europe, that attraction could have stood out more than playing in England.
True.
Lenny says, "What's your favourite Roy Keane quote, lads?"
I'm going home.
That it? What about the rest of you?
Don't know, to be honest.
My one is the one where the phone rings in the press conference. Ipswich, yeah.
Ipswich down presser.
Yeah.
The one I did the TikTok for. That one. Where he just lives this morning.
I think the one where Gary Neville's getting out saying, "Oh, there's United players have gone tired and their legs are gone." And he's like, "It's just 2 yards, Gary." That was a good one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it was like 2 yards. He was right. Like I think Neville was trying to make up excuses. Oh, here's some substitutions now. So Cascarino, Shades is off.
There's an electronic board for you.
Yeah.
Aldridge coming off.
Some FIFA tracksuit as well.
To be fair, speaking of tracksuits, the tracksuits, we never mentioned Ireland's tracksuit, did we? Looks quality.
Oh, they're amazing. Absolutely amazing.
They look brilliant, actually. The Dutch tracksuits look very gaudy, actually, but I really like our ones. Yeah.
They're still looked upon now. People are all looking to try buy them. I mean, if the FAI decide not to go with New Balance for, I don't know, next year's kit, because I don't know what the story is with New Balance. A lot of people seem to be pulling out of deals. I know Celtic and Liverpool have pulled out of deals with them, but it might not be a bad idea for them to go back to Umbro, and it might not be a bad idea if that is the case, to Umbro to bring back it's not the exact same tracksuit, but a similar one. I think they do well with it, like,
I think we were still Adidas then, though. The 1990 gear.
Oh, sorry, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
It was Adidas until
but
94, wasn't it, Gary? No, Adidas was 94 as well. Umbro, I think.
So sure about 94.
No, hold on.
When Umbro took
90.
over. Yeah.
Umbro's 94 because that was their. Do you remember their advert? The only two teams to beat Italy, and they had like a Brazilian fan and an Irish fan.
Okay.
Well,
No.
even they could make a tracksuit similar.
Yeah, you could, but like I remember them. They were really shiny, like they were the real shell suits that you used to see like in the early '90s. But they just look great.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. To be fair,
Really.
I don't actually remember that you could buy those tracksuits. I could be wrong, but I actually don't remember seeing those Irish ones for sale in.
he couldn't buy it. Well, I wasn't born then, but I remember when even when I was 8, and I couldn't. It was a struggle to buy gear. Like,
I
found it a real struggle. Even normal teams, like it was only up until around the kind of early 2000s it made it really easy to get, say, international teams and stuff like that. Like the 2002 World Cup, you could get Ireland gear quite handy enough. That green jersey with the round neck. It's probably my favourite jersey because it's probably the strongest Irish team I can remember in my time of watching them. But obviously the white one that came out then for the World Cup, the one we played against Spain with. We played with that white one. So those were all easy enough to get back then. But I just remember back in like 1998 and stuff like that, it was hard to get jerseys, and even Premier League stuff, unless you were over at a game and you got it in their mega store, it was hard to get the gear,
If you weren't
in shops.
Liverpool, you weren't getting it. That was pretty much the story. I had to order my first Chelsea jersey in a store. I went in, I knew the sports store owner, and he was like, I can get you one, but I'm just ordering one. Because there was no, uptake on it. It was Liverpool, Man United, the odd Arsenal. But that was kind of pretty much it, really, Yeah,
you could definitely for that World Cup, you could actually get the home and away jerseys, because I had those and I wore those in Italy. But I don't think you could get anything else. I mean, it was just probably the start of the merchandise boom, but it was too early, I suppose, and clubs and football associations didn't really cop on to the opportunity that was there at the time.
Nice move, Will.
Well, you could get the kit, because I got the kit for the 1990 World Cup. I got the full home kit, the green one. It came, I think I said the last time, it came like an Adidas box.
Yeah, you said it, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember those shorts and socks. They were actually my club colours for my local team who I played for. So, like, those shorts and socks were worn for God knows how many matches and training matches and everything. They were brilliant. And you kind of didn't want to get rid of them either as well. It was really weird.
I used to love that with gear that you'd buy, like Ireland gear, and you could end up wearing it for your team because it was the same colour. I used to love that because you were so comfortable in wearing them that you'd almost feel, like a better player. You'd feel more confident almost with like the socks or the shorts of say you'd be out wearing them with your mates or whatever. Like I'd be going out with my mates on the field and we'd throw on our football kits and go out. These days you'd be called a full kit wanker or whatever, but back then you didn't care.
Yeah.
There's a couple of comments, lads. Aaron Lowry asks, right, he says, hi all, was born in 1991. This question is mostly for Gary. Would love to know what was the country like during this World Cup? Only really got second-hand information and very little primary information. Maybe he missed earlier on, but there's no harm in kind of saying from our own perspective.
I'll go back, quote the late, great Con Houlihan, and he says, I missed Italia 90, he says. I was in Italy at the time. Yeah. So in some ways, I probably can't say what the country was like because I was away for the whole thing. And by the time I got back, it was a week after the team. So it was already kind of died down. But I know from ringing home and talking to friends and family, the country literally just went mad. I mean, every man, woman and child in the country was watching the World Cup. And the games just took over absolutely everything. I mean, nothing happened. The buses didn't run. The trains didn't run. There was nothing. The streets were empty. And everybody was either at home or in the pub watching the games. And I think we were talking a bit earlier about, I think only a World Cup, I think it was Will that said it can really do that. The Euros, not so much the same because And I see it now, and I just see reports and all in other countries in the World Cup, and I kind of get a bit jealous because I really would love us to go back to another World Cup. But just the way the countries stop, and that's probably the really special thing. And I think if we did get to Qatar or maybe USA, Mexico, Canada in 26, it would be something similar again.
I think also if Aaron wants to have a look and get a taster of what it was like, all he needs to do is look on YouTube for the homecoming. And the homecoming of the Irish team in 1990 was just, everybody was just taken aback with how many people turned up. It was College Green, wasn't it? And the streets were just absolutely flooded. It was just mental, absolutely crazy.
I think they said possibly up to 1 million people were on the streets for that homecoming between the airport and the whole way in and the centre of town.
Fourth of Ireland was there.
Exactly, of a country of how many people at that time?
Yeah,
and I don't think the lads from talking to the lads before, I don't think any of them realised kind of what was going on back home either, as in the uptake that it had gotten, because obviously, soccer was always competing with rugby and GA, and then all of a sudden it just blew both of them out of the water.
Well, Andrew couldn't actually, because he spoke about the GAA there. He actually says, do you think the GAA's success has had a detrimental effect on Irish soccer since the 90s and early 2000s? That's the lad from San Francisco.
I wouldn't know, because the GAA has always been there. I wouldn't say that the GAA is more successful in the 90s or 90s than it ever was before. Football for me, I still think a lot of people say it's very, very, very popular in Ireland. Most towns and villages in Ireland will also have a football team to go alongside their GAA team. I still think football is still very, very strong. Obviously, Italian 90 has definitely brought on and took it to another level, but even it was gas, even in Italian 90, how the GAA, which obviously would be very anti-soccer, especially until that time, how they actually then kind of changed their tune. They actually changed pictures around, particularly the Egypt game, because it was Sunday, the void cancelling, or the void clashing with the World Cup games. And just as I say that, Ireland have got the equaliser. There is now Quinn.
Here we go.
Oh, get in there,
Noel Quinn. Yeah.
Get in, 1-1.
Yeah.
Jared, take your top off.
No.
I did back in Italian 90.
a long clearance from Packy, which we got quite a few goals from in those days, and headed on. Van Breukelen probably should have held on to it. Thankfully, he didn't. And here it is now.
The Dutch defender was trying to do it.
The Dutch defender, yeah. And
I don't know what he was really trying to do with his clearance, Dutch defender.
Yeah.
God bless those long legs.
There was a very similar type goal in terms of the routine to Sheeky's goal against England, a long goof as well from Bonner.
Yeah. Because obviously back then as well, remember, you were allowed pass back to the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like he was caught between a pass and clearing it, but
I think that probably ended Packy's career a bit prematurely when the back pass came in. I think it was 1992 it came in.
He didn't adapt to that at all.
Yeah.
Staunch GAA man, someone said in the comments.
Who? Packy Bonner?
Yeah.
Country by goals, it's probably in the blood as well. Just even yourself, Gary, about that GAA comment about coming from Limerick, which would be a city, I suppose, more known for its rugby and hurling. Do you think that has had an effect on why football isn't maybe quite strong and why Limerick doesn't even have?
I suppose the one thing, and I was saying there was a lot of GAA and rugby fans in Italy. The GAA and rugby certainly have hugely successfully. I know GAA is a lot bigger than rugby, but they've made their sports big occasions and big spectator sports. And I suppose we don't have that. We don't have it nowadays. We did have it in 1990 for just the home games. Everybody wanted to be at them and wanted to be seen at them. I think now we probably don't have that, but there's more people actually play football or soccer in this country than any other sport. But most people actually want to go over and watch Liverpool or Manchester United, and they see them as the glamour and the places to be. Whereas in the GA, well, it's only in Ireland, so you want to be in Croke Park, you want to see your county there. And in rugby, we do have teams like Leinster and Munster that do kind of Irish people don't support Glasgow or Saracens or whoever else, you know. But I mean, yeah, the GAA have been very successful in rugby. I mean, coming from Limerick, which is very much a rugby city and surrounded by very staunch hurling areas, which are just around the city, it's very strong. But there would also be, I mean, an awful lot of people when I was growing up, most people would play soccer. And but they play rugby as well. And just out the county, the hurling would be very strong.
There's a question come in there saying from Andrew again, saying any predictions for Stephen Kenny's reign as Irish manager. I still think it's very premature to be making any predictions. He hasn't even met the squad really.
Yeah, and we don't even know if we'll have a Nations League or any games even later this year. So yeah.
Or when the qualifier or the crucial playoff against Slovakia will be. But obviously.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts anyway about playing games behind closed doors? The League of Ireland games.
I don't like it. I actually would I would prefer to wait. I don't think it actually makes financial sense. I think our clubs are far too dependent on the match day revenue, match day income, and as a fan, I don't like it. I mean, I don't like watching those Champions League games on TV that are played in empty stadiums.
Yeah, they're strange.
Yeah, I would actually. I think from a League of Ireland perspective, I would prefer to wait. I still think there's time. There's plenty of time to finish this season, albeit probably with a lot less matches. But you will have. I think we'll still finish a league. We'll have a champion. We'll have clubs qualifying for Europe. We can have an FAI Cup, even if we're still playing at Christmas or into. I wouldn't be adverse to playing into January. And
do you think that could be actually a possibility that people even by the end of the year could be allowed into stadiums to watch League of Ireland matches? Because from what you be hearing in the media, it looks high unlikely.
Well, I think what they're saying, I mean, if I was reading the government plan, they were allowing up to 5,000 people at events. So now I don't know if you'll get 5,000 people into Tala Stadium, which could be a problem, or into any stadium. But even if you had some level of spectators, I think it would certainly help. I know they've talked about possibly playing the Aviva. I mean, you could easily get 5,000. Possibly the government might allow more. I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen with this virus, but you could have 5,000 people with social distancing in the Aviva, no problem.
Quite comfortably, really, to be honest.
Yeah. But who knows? I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I actually have a query how the European games are going to be played, because, I mean, they're talking about playing those as single-legged ties in August or September. Now, if Dundalk were...
this season, Gary, I think this season, European-wise, is done.
I think so too. Just with travel involved, I can't see how.
You're just asking for trouble. Never mind on a national level like the Bundesliga are going to do, and they're going to test everybody, and you know, money is kind of ruling the end of the day with that. But you kind of have to say, okay. But then when you're talking about flying to different countries, and you know, people just think, oh, it's 22 players on a pitch. It's nowhere near that. I was talking to a friend of mine today in Germany who's a reporter out there, and he said to me, the Bundesliga plan is for a maximum of 323 people per game, including players, staff, broadcast, everything. So that is the maximum that can be at a game. So, you know, that's where that's going to go, and that's going to be from, next weekend?
Yeah.
Like, we're going to have to wait for improvements. If there's no vaccine, then you are taking a risk on whatever level. They obviously feel it's a small enough risk, but if you're crossing borders, then, you know, the risk just multiplies. And I can't see anything being done with crowds until September at the earliest. Just had a bit of an incident there going back to the match.
Yeah, if Dundalk were to draw, let's say, Dinamo Brest, the Belarus champions in the Champions League first round, I mean, would the Irish government, would they allow Dundalk to go to Belarus, or would they allow the Belarus team to come into the country? I mean, they haven't shut down. Their league is still going on. So I don't know. I mean...
Well, Gary, like where we are now is you can't. The answer right now would be no way. There'd be no way they'd be coming over here.
But even in August or September, I still don't know how that's going to be possible, you know.
You skipped a bit there. Will, your connection went there for a sec. Do you want to say what you were saying again?
Oh, sorry. I think where we are right now, there's no way that they'd be allowed to travel. Then it might be put forward, right? What about a neutral venue? Okay, but then you take the Dundalk squad, the Dundalk staff, media team, whoever go, they're going to have to come back in quarantine for 2 weeks.
Yeah, you can't have a League of Ireland then.
Players, because they have families, and then it goes on from there, and they can't go and stay in a neutral venue and quarantine over there for 2 weeks. You know, it becomes, and you don't have the sort of money that the likes of a Premier League club would have to go, right, we can have almost like our own lab where we can test these players every single day and make sure they don't have it. We don't have the capability of that. So then it's, unfortunately, that's money that goes into the FAI from UEFA, but it is what it is. Like the Belarus League continuing is crazy, but they've decided it's best for them. So I think it's going to be, you know, I can't see much happening before Christmas. I know the Premier League are keen now. I've heard a lot about in the past couple of weeks about the clubs, what they're doing over there and what they're starting to do. But again, I think that season is going to be voided. I can't see the players en masse saying, yeah, we're going to play.
I think it's too big a risk even for those players at this time. And I mean, the Premier League can spend a fortune on testing. They can obviously have the best of every possible equipment that money can buy. But still, you're putting 22 players out on the pitch, and they are going to be in close physical contact, you know.
Which then
but they also have families then, and some of them may live with elderly people, and it could affect them. I think that's what Luke Byrne of Shelburne came out and said yesterday on Off the Ball. It's like, you know, obviously want to get back playing, but we've obviously got fears of our family or, you know, grandparents or whoever that they may come in contact with, maybe after playing a match. You know, they could contract the virus, and then they go and visit their whatever when restrictions are lifted, and then therefore pass on the virus in that sense. And that's the thing what players are fearful about as well. I'm not sure about the Premier League players. Any of the lads I've spoken about, I tend to not really speak to them about it, and their clubs don't really want them touching on the matter. But even before shows or whatever, I don't really discuss it with them. It's just more so kind of getting into how they've been keeping or what they've been doing type of thing. You wouldn't really ask them kind of sensitive information like that, you know.
But we've already heard the likes of Aguero. He's come out straight away and said wouldn't be comfortable. I think Willian said the same thing. The Norwich manager came out last week and said obviously he'd love to get back to work, obviously he'd love to finish the season, especially where they are. They, you know, would love to try and stay up. But he said it's not worth one person's life. If one person was to die from this, which, you know, the way the UK have handled it, it could have been done an awful lot better. And it's a strange situation they find themselves in, because they're trying to, you know, it's such a huge machine, the Premier League, worldwide, internationally, the amount of money that's involved. Like even a simple little thing that's come up is if the league was to resume, and where we are now, so we are the 8th of May, you'd be looking at, I would say, past the 1st of June for the earliest start date. Then there was talk about, right, Liverpool go on to lift the trophy. Their contract with New Balance ends. I'm not sure what date it ends on. Whose kits are they wearing?
Probably the end of June. I think nearly everything ends on the 30th of June.
30th of June.
Well, there we go, right? So if it's the 30th of June and we don't go back, say, until the 8th of June, it's roughly going to be around then. So if they were presented on the 1st of July, they technically should be in Nike's kit, not New Balance's kit. There's a whole legal wrangle. There's so many legal
players' contracts as well expire on the 30th of June. You talked about Willian there. He's finished at Chelsea on the 30th of June unless he gets a new contract, which is unlikely.
So, Ziyech from Ajax joins Chelsea on the 1st of June.
Yeah.
So there's so many different things, and I personally just don't think it's worth it. I think give Liverpool the trophy.
But what happens with the relegated teams? I think that's and then obviously there's no. I'm not saying this to you, Will. I'm just saying in a general sense. But like then there's the European spots like the Wolves and Sheffield United have been pushing on. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's people are like worrying about those situations. Obviously with me following Everton, I don't really care. I'd end it myself. But when you look if the shoe was on the other foot, I'd be thinking, oh well, they have to come to some sort of agreement soon because it's just dragging on a bit too long now, I think.
Put it this way, there's always going to be losers from this. And I think the easiest way to do it will be to keep the 20 teams in the Premier League. The top two in the Championship, you could cover their expenses for next season, kind of say, right, well, look, you were pretty much nails on to go up. You'd be able to settle that with them. The 3 teams don't go down. The playoff teams would unfortunately have to take it. And then the top 4 is the top 4. And the top 6 is for the European places. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Give Liverpool the trophy. And then, because if we look again dates-wise where we are, teams will start to drift back into pre-season around the 20th of June. That's only just, a month and 12 days away. So then you're affecting next season. And then, of course, what we have next season is the Qatar World Cup. So
the Euros. The Euros at the end of next season. Yeah.
Sorry, yes. Well, we'll have the Euros, but then we're going towards the World Cup, and then that's going to affect the footballing calendar. So there may be an opportunity here for them all to get together and be able to work towards that, because that was going to be a huge spanner in the works to try and to fit in and to try and get leagues around the world paused or whatever. But I think this season you're trying to put too much, trying to fit too much in with players and exhaustion, and then go straight into next season, straight off the back, another 38 games straight off the back of an extra whatever it is, 9 or 10,
and the transfer window as well.
But this is it. There's so many different things. It's almost right. This is something that's unprecedented and you can't take into account for. Nobody can plan for. And as I said, everybody, I think, has got to give a little bit and realise we're all going to lose. Look at Liverpool. They're not going to win it the way they would have wanted to win it. They can't really celebrate it properly, but they've got a league trophy.
Well, I think their fans will still take it at this point. Jared, I'm sure you would, Jared, as well. I've spoken to a lot of Liverpool fans, and they've waited so long to get the trophy that, if it was brought in on an ambulance or whatever, they wouldn't care. They really wouldn't care.
Like as Will said, it's not the ideal circumstances if you want to win the league, but at the end of the day, there's more important matters and issues out there like that. I think we wouldn't really kind of care what way at this stage, because it's just dragging on at this stage. And as we said, we're into May now, and there's no even resumption date decided. As I said, a number of players have come out and said they don't want to come out and play. The Premier League have even turned around and said they're planning for next season behind closed doors as well. There's just so much up in the air. It's just a disaster, really, in many respects. It's probably looking like at this stage, I think it will be quite harsh to avoid the season, not just saying as a Liverpool fan, but the likes of Leicester, Sheffield United, Wolves, who can miss out on European money. But it's looking like it's going to have to follow the same route as the Eredivisie and the French League, that it's just going to have to take the season as it is. But as Will said, you can't do relegation really then, because you have Aston Villa with the game in hand. So the easiest thing probably will be to play 22 teams in the Premier League next season, and then have 4 or 5 teams.
I don't think you can play 22 teams. I think I agree you can't do relegation. I think it would be incredibly unfair.
They did do 22 teams before the Premier League.
But with all the contracts, with the dates now, you're adding an extra 4 games for the clubs, and I don't think the dates are there with all the European games and everything.
So it doesn't even look as going back from about getting European spots. Is there going to be even any European football next season?
But again, that's what has to be taken into account and decided. But I have to just, sorry to change the subject, but Gary, I have to ask you about this. There was, and I think Mick did confirm it once, because we're getting into the last minutes of this match.
I was going to ask this as well. Yeah.
I think I know what you're going to ask.
A whole lot of people leaving, and apparently there was this chat that happened between Mick and
Their captain.
Ruud Gullit. I think it was Mick. I might have been Ruud Gullit, I think. And
to kind of say, right, let's keep it as it is. And then there was the famous moment where the ref, I think, brought the two captains together. Was there anything going around in the stadium that it was just like, right, lads, get together with the Dutch lads, let's all have a party?
Yeah, I mean, certainly once we got the equaliser, our feeling was, yeah, Jesus, this suits both teams. I think we definitely knew England were ahead at that point. And this suits both teams. We're both going through. So there was certainly a feeling among the fans that, yeah, it looked a little bit like it on the pitch. It's not, I mean, I'm watching it back there now, and it's not as obvious.
I mean, it is. It's blatant.
So maybe late, we scored in the 71st minute, so maybe it was late. Yeah, maybe this late in the game now it's a bit blatant, but immediately afterwards it wasn't as obvious because we went forward. We actually had a couple of half chances. For the last few minutes it was pretty blatant. I mean, people talk about
back to the Cooper.
People talk about Germany and Austria in 1982 in Gijón in Spain in the World Cup that knocked Algeria out. Now, that was particularly disgraceful because the whole match was nearly like that. I remember watching that on TV and just being horrified at it. And, the last couple of minutes now, it is pretty obvious, but, yeah.
Obviously, both teams were pretty confident that Egypt weren't going to get an equaliser against England.
Yeah, if Egypt had actually got an equaliser, maybe the Egypt game was over at this point. I can't remember for sure. It may have come through that maybe there was a final whistle in Sardinia.
They're just looking at the clock there on TG Carter. It's 10:45 now, so they're into injury time in the second half. I know so.
Yeah, and but had Egypt scored, it would have been we'd all have been drawing lots for the group winners, second, third, and fourth, and someone would have gone home unbeaten by drawing lots.
Similar enough to the Japan and Senegal situation from the last World Cup where fair play decided between them two teams.
Say that again?
Just saying it was a similar situation in the last World Cup where Senegal and Japan decided between their fair play as to who went through to knockout stages.
Yeah, but you can understand why they're doing it. It might not be the fairest thing to do, but look, it's I suppose in-game management, and it's about being smart, isn't it? So they both obviously recognise that we're both going through here. So what's the point in one beating the other? It's going to be the same odds, really, isn't it? So
and it's basically the end of the game as well. So you can't really say, as Gary said, it wasn't like Germany and Austria where they were practically doing it for large parts of the game.
Yeah, Gary, were you on the lash after this game, were you?
We had a few beers, though, because we were staying in Sheffield. We had to try and get back, and it was quite late at night. So I think we had cans. It definitely had beers organised because we were staying anyway, come what may. But I remember we had a couple of cans or something, if I remember rightly. But it took quite a while to get out of Palermo, and it was quite late when we got back. My memory is the game kicked off fairly late anyway, and we had to get out. We were no rush out of the stadium, obviously, once we qualified, and but it was a good night.
Class. I'm fairly jealous of the fact that I wasn't born at this time to be able to kind of witness how good of a side we had. Is there a stripper on the pitch or something now? Or... I thought that no, because you know the way that kind of camera angle comes in when there's usually a stripper on the pitch. Or streaker, sorry.
I don't remember any anyway. Yeah, it wasn't me.
No, it was just the kick. It wasn't you. No, it's just the way the camera angle was on the way he kicked the ball. There's that beautiful tracksuit there on Mick Byrne.
Oh, it's class tracksuit,
But yeah, as I was saying, I'm sure you're the same, Jerry. It's just being jealous of the lads that they got to witness those players.
Big time. Like, I suppose the only thing I can take away from it, I got to go to Euro 2016, so at least I still got to go to a major tournament, but obviously it was nowhere near to the same extent of what Italia 90 was.
Yeah, or 94, because Gary was at both, weren't you, Gary?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I've been lucky enough to be to all our major finals, so yeah. I think Italia 90 was probably from the World Cups, because it was the first one, it was probably the best one as well. And there was probably just a whole innocence around the whole thing.
Yeah, and obviously, when Sheedy scores that goal against England as well, I'm sure the place was buzzing at that stage. So.
Oh yeah, no, that was a huge goal, because it kind of felt if we'd lost the opening game, we would definitely been up against it then against Egypt. The feeling was we needed one draw with either Holland or England and beat Egypt. We ended up getting the 3 draws instead. But the important thing was to get out of the group.
You were hardly allowed into the pubs for any of them matches when you was a 7-year-old.
Sorry, no. God, no. As far as I remember, just watched them all at home. But it was like, I think it was the first time as well that everybody in the country, it was all booked in. It was like everybody was doing it. It was kind of marked on your calendar, and families got together and all this sort of stuff. And then from then on, I think as we went into post-World Cup, into the Euro qualifiers, it became then the same. It was like, the Irish match. Everybody was at home for the Irish match. Everybody would watch the Irish match. It'd be amazing to see if there was a big jump in viewing figures for RTE, to see what the difference was, say, from 89 to 91, because after 1990, it just went crazy. And then, as we talked about before, Gary, that team that went to Wembley that time, that was like almost like the zenith of the Jack teams. It was a really strong team. We should have beaten England at Wembley. Yeah,
that was one way that line was really, wasn't it?
That whole tournament, we should have qualified for Euro 92, and I think
big time.
We probably could have done really well had we made it as well.
I agree.
And what did? Come on. Someone saying something there? No. I was just saying, what do you think it was down to the fact that we didn't do it in the 92?
I think, if I'm correct in saying, Gary, we only missed out on goal difference in the end, wasn't it? Was it the Turkey game or Poland game? We were a couple of goals up and we ended up drawing the game.
I think we missed out by a point. There was so many regrets. Wembley we should have won. We only drew. Poland at home, we absolutely battered them. And how it finished 0-0, I don't know. Poland away, we were 3-1 up in Poznan. The game was over. We had won. It should have been 4-5. The game was absolutely over. And we gifted them 2 goals. I don't know how we didn't win that game. We were just so much better than them. And even allowing for all of those points dropped, Poland were beating England. I think that was in Poznan as well. And we were beating Turkey the same night. And Poland had a nailed-on penalty turned down, which would have put them 2-0 up with 15, 20 minutes to go. And that would have qualified us if Poland had won that match. But England equalised. And I think they went through by a point. We would have gone through on goal difference, but had England lost. But it was just... it's just even hard to talk about it because it was so unjust and so just we threw it away. The 2 Poland games, the Wembley game, the chances we had at Wembley, and we just had so many chances. One more extra point, which we should have got. We should have got the extra points in both Polish games and at Wembley as well. So it really was a sickening one to miss out on.
The one thing we were always missing, Gary, I don't know whether you think this as well, in that team, we had good strikers in Niall and John and Tony Cascarino, and then a few kind of backup lads like Dave Kelly and John Byrne and stuff, but we were always missing somebody who was just there to score. Cascarino and Quinn were good kind of target men and would nick you the odd goal. John was always a good striker, but just, I don't know, never really seemed to maybe hit the form that he probably thought he could do. If we had, I think, a Robbie Keane back in those days.
I think Robbie would have made... No, one of the things about John Aldridge was leading scorer in England in the late 80s. He was a top goal scorer. he took a long time to score for us. I think 17, whatever number of internationals. He did end up, I think, with 20 I think it was about 20 international, 19 or 20 international goals in the end. But perhaps the way we played and Jack's style, there was so much off the ball and chasing down required of the strikers that perhaps the likes of John Aldridge could have been knackered and wouldn't have had the time, wouldn't have had, let's say, the levels, the energy to actually just take those chances. But even in that 92 campaign, I mean, we drew 3-3. Okay, we should have scored at home against Poland. That was one day we were lacking a goal. But, I mean, 3-3 away to Poland. I mean, it wasn't lack of goals. It was just gifting goals at the back. We put 5 past Turkey. We got 3 away from home. So we scored in both England games. I don't know. I think it was just maybe just bad luck or just things not falling for us. Having said that, maybe we were a bit lucky then to get to USA 94 with the way it worked out. We didn't even qualify in goal difference. We qualified in goals scored. So I know that's one Denmark field that they let get away. So look, who knows? But
yeah, that Euro 92 campaign, I think Packy Bonner said as well, like that was probably some of the best football Ireland played under Jack Charlton, and it was very evident in the highlights see that Wembley game against England that we had them off the park that night.
Oh yeah.
Sure, Lineker came out and said it, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even
But
the Sun at the
England were
time.
delighted with the point back in.
Yeah, the Sun, which was very jingoistic, probably still is, but the English Sun. But they even admitted afterwards in their report the next day that Ireland were far the better team and should have won 3-1. You know.
Don't point the Sun.
You said it there as well that like Euro 92 tournament could have gone quite far. Like, you're sitting at home watching, seeing Denmark, a team that didn't even qualify for go on to win it, and you're kind of thinking like, if we had got there, that like, and it was only an 18 tournament, it really could have suited us, and we could have actually maybe got to the knockout stage and possibly beyond.
Yeah, I think Denmark did kind of ride a bit of a wave in that tournament, didn't they? And I think the footballing gods came together for them to win it. And they were lucky, but they did play some very good football. And they had a good team who came together and kind of peaked, I think. And then it was like Ireland. We even seen, Ireland against the Dutch in 1990, like we've seen tonight. They were the European champions, and Ireland were able to match them. I always think Ireland, especially in that era, like we talk about the Egypt game. Ireland that era were always so much better as the underdogs. When they were expected to win, I think sometimes they kind of struggled at times. But when we had to play the big teams, England, both occasions, in Stuttgart and in obviously Italy, Romania. I can't remember, Gary. Did we go into the Romania game as favourites or not?
They had actually done very well in the group stages, and Hadji was some player at the time. So it was probably seen as maybe a 50-50 game, with maybe Romania as slight favourites. I mean, they'd finished ahead of Argentina in that group.
Yeah, really good core players in that team as well.
Yeah.
So, just one of those things you could go over and back over, and you could always say as well, like you were saying about the way we played. Jack had one plan. Should we have had a plan B? The teams figure Ireland out. Kind of, it's an interesting one that'll be discussed, I'd say, for the rest of time, really.
Yeah. They were certainly great days, though,
Definitely.
Well, I think I'll see if there's any comments, and if there's not, maybe we'll leave it at that, because most of the game's finished. But really enjoyed that. Just catching up and reminiscing, hearing stories about the times where obviously myself and Jared weren't alive at the time, but just hearing the stories and kind of what it was like from, your perspective, Will, because I know from France 98, that was my first World Cup when I was 7, so I remember how, fixated I was, and Ireland weren't even in the World Cup, so I can only imagine having Ireland in the World Cup, how fixated you were, and then Gary obviously being at it. It's obviously great for me and Jared to be able to kind of come on here and hear you talking about it, and then anyone else. I know there's a couple of people in the comments who said it as well, that they wanted to kind of get your view on it. I know you weren't in the country, but even that story you said about that lad from America, going home thinking there was a nuclear war in the world or something.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we're all good. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as I said, so if anyone's watching, make sure you like, and if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. If you don't follow Gary, check him out on Twitter at Spade Gary. Check out Jer at JerryB96, and then Will Dalton at Will Dalton01 on, I think, Twitter and Instagram. Gary's not on Instagram, so go check him out. Give the lads a follow, and lads, thanks again. We'll do this again next Friday then if he's all available. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Romania again next Friday, so
yeah,
we're in for the long one for that night.
Happy days. Right, well, lads, I'll let you go, and thanks again for coming on. Right, I'll chat to you later on. Take care.
All right,
Thanks, guys.
Stay safe.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye-bye.